The Dexter Morgan Effect is the term used to describe a cultural and psychological phenomenon, the way audiences come to sympathize with and even root for a serial killer. At its core, it reveals how narrative framing, character design, and storytelling devices can reshape our sense of morality. 1. Definition of the effect. The Dexter Morgan Effect shows how people can end up liking someone they should fear. Dexter is a serial killer, but he isn't treated like a monster. Instead, he's the main character, the one we follow, and the person the story wants us to understand. The effect works because we see everything from Dexter's point of view. We hear his thoughts, we listen to his rules, we watch the people he chooses as targets. Over time, this changes how we feel. What should look like simple murder starts to look like justice. Most killers in books or movies are made to scare us. They stay in the shadows and feel distant. Dexter is different. He talks to us. He explains himself. He shows both sides of his life. That closeness tricks the audience into seeing him as more than a killer. The Dexter Morgan Effect proves how powerful storytelling can be. By letting us inside his head, the story shifts the way we judge right and wrong. Actions that should feel cruel suddenly feel necessary, and sometimes even good. 2. The double life dynamic. One of the main reasons the Dexter Morgan Effect works is because he lives two lives. In the daylight, he looks like a normal man. He has a job helping the police. He smiles, makes small talk, and seems harmless. But at night, he becomes something else. He hunts people who have killed and gotten away with it. This split is what makes him so interesting to watch. Viewers are pulled into the tension of how long he can keep both sides hidden. Will someone at work notice the small mistakes? Will his friends or family ever see what he really does? Every moment feels like he's walking on a tightrope. The idea of a person with two faces isn't new. Stories have always had characters who hide one part of themselves, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or heroes who wear masks to fight crime. But Dexter's version feels real. He doesn't have superpowers or costumes. He only has discipline, planning, and the mask of acting normal.
That brief moment when I'm completely myself is over. And it's time to put the mask back on.
This double life makes viewers curious and uneasy. On one hand, we see him as helpful and even likable in public. On the other hand, we know what happens when the mask comes off. That constant switch is what keeps people watching and is a key part of why the Dexter Morgan Effect works so strongly. 3. The code as moral framework. Dexter is not a random killer. He follows a set of rules called the code. The code says he can only target people who have already killed, and only if he is sure they will do it again. This system is what separates him from the kind of killers he hunts. The code makes it easier for viewers to accept what he does. Instead of watching senseless violence, the audience sees a process with rules. Dexter doesn't just act on anger. He gathers proof, checks his target, and decides if they are guilty. This creates the feeling that his actions are controlled and in a strange way fair. But the code also raises questions. Who gets to decide what counts as proof? What if Dexter makes a mistake? The audience rarely doubts him because the story is told from his side. Still, those doubts add tension. The code is both a safety net and a trap. It gives Dexter purpose, but it also locks him into a life he can't escape. This moral framework is what keeps the Dexter Morgan Effect in place. Without the code, he would be seen as just another murderer. With it, he looks more like a vigilante carrying out a dark kind of justice, and that makes people want to keep following his story. 4. The role of narrative perspective. Another reason the Dexter Morgan Effect works is because we see the world through Dexter's eyes. He doesn't just act in silence. He talks to the audience. We hear his thoughts, his jokes, and his reasoning. This makes him feel open and honest, even when he's hiding from everyone else. By letting us inside his head, the story changes how we see him. If we only watched his actions from the outside, he would look like a cold killer. But hearing his inner voice makes the same actions feel logical, even normal. His words guide us to see murder as a choice with reasons, not just an act of cruelty. This style of storytelling is powerful because it builds closeness. Viewers are not just watching Dexter, they are sitting beside him. They know his fears, his plans, and his secrets. The more he explains himself, the more the audience feels like they understand him, even if they don't agree with him.
With the nurse put down, Harry lived another year before hardening arteries squeezed the last bit of life from him. But his lessons have never failed me.
Other shows use narration too, but in Dexter's case, it serves a special role. It makes the audience feel like a partner in his secret life. And once you're that close, it becomes harder to step back and see him only as a killer. That closeness is the heart of the effect. 5. Blurring justice and murder. The Dexter Morgan Effect also works because it blurs the line between justice and murder. Dexter doesn't choose his victims at random. He looks for killers who slipped through the cracks of the legal system. In his mind, he is fixing mistakes, giving punishment where the law failed. This makes viewers feel like his killings are a kind of vigilante justice. He becomes both the judge and the executioner. People watching may not agree with real-world murder, but in the story, they feel relief when Dexter removes someone dangerous. The audience begins to see his actions less as crimes and more as corrections. The danger is that the line is never as clear as it seems. Sometimes Dexter's choices are based on his own judgment, not on a court or jury. That means the audience must trust his decisions completely. The story is built so that most of the time he looks right, but the thought of him being wrong adds tension. This theme connects to bigger cultural ideas. People are often drawn to heroes who take the law into their own hands, like Batman or Robin Hood. But unlike those figures, Dexter does not wear a cape or act in the open. His justice is secret, personal, and deadly. That secrecy is what makes his story both thrilling and disturbing. 6. Impact on audience psychology. One of the most powerful parts of the Dexter Morgan Effect is what it does to the audience's mind. Viewers often find themselves agreeing with Dexter's logic. When he explains why a killer deserves to die, people nod along. When he finally acts, they feel a strange sense of relief instead of shock. This happens because the story guides the audience into a state called moral disengagement. That means people stop judging an action by normal rules when it's shown as necessary or good. Murder in the real world would cause fear and anger, but in Dexter's world, it feels like justice.
I'm here because of all the innocent people you killed.
Innocent? You think those drivers were innocent?
They're average, hardworking people trying to make a living, support their families.
The effect can be unsettling. Viewers may finish an episode and realize they just rooted for a serial killer. They might even ask themselves questions like, would I support this in real life? Most would say no. But the fact that they asked the question at all shows how much the story has pulled them in. This reveals something important. Morality is not fixed. It can shift when the framing changes. By showing us everything through Dexter's point of view, the story proves how easy it is to bend ideas of right and wrong. That bending is the core of the effect. 7. Relationships and humanization. Another reason people connect with Dexter is because of his relationships. He is not shown only as a hunter of killers. He is also a coworker, a brother, a partner, and later, a father. These roles give him a softer side that balances the darkness. When we see him at work, he is helpful and skilled. When he is with family, he tries to protect them, even if he struggles to show his feelings. When he becomes a parent, we see his fear of passing on his dark nature. These moments remind the audience that there is more to him than killing. The effect is powerful because it forces viewers to hold two truths at once. Dexter can be caring in one moment and deadly in the next. He can sit at the dinner table one night and stalk a target the same evening. Instead of pushing people away, this mix makes him feel real. It shows that even someone with terrible urges can still try to connect with others. The more the story highlights his human side, the harder it becomes for the audience to see him only as a monster. They feel drawn to the version of him that wants to belong, and that sympathy makes his darker actions easier to accept. 8. The mask of normality. Dexter's life works because of the mask he wears. On the surface, he looks normal. He shows up to work on time. He smiles when people talk to him. He remembers birthdays and family dinners. To almost everyone around him, he seems like an ordinary man. But underneath that mask, he hides who he really is. The audience knows the truth. Every friendly smile is part of a performance. This creates suspense, because at any moment, someone might notice a crack in the act. The tension comes from watching how carefully he keeps the mask in place. The idea of hiding behind normal behavior is scary, because it feels real. Many famous killers in history also looked like regular people. Ted Bundy seemed charming. John Wayne Gacy was a community worker. Dennis Rader lived as a family man for years while committing crimes in secret. Dexter represents this same fear, the idea that evil can live next door, and no one would notice.
People fake a lot of human interactions, but I feel like I fake them all, and I fake them very well.
This mask of normality is what makes the Dexter Morgan Effect so strong. Viewers see how easy it is to be fooled by appearances. They realize that someone can look like a friend, a neighbor, or a coworker while hiding something much darker inside. 9. Media power and sympathy for villains. The Dexter Morgan Effect also shows how powerful stories can be. Through careful writing and framing, the show makes people feel sympathy for someone they would normally fear. The audience does not just watch a serial killer. They watch a man with rules, struggles, and emotions. That difference changes everything. This puts Dexter in the same group as other famous TV antiheroes. Characters like Tony Soprano and Walter White are deeply flawed, but viewers still care about them. The difference is that their crimes, organized crime or drug dealing, feel less extreme than Dexter's. Serial killing is supposed to be unforgivable, yet the way the story is told makes people side with him anyway. The lesson is simple. Media shapes morality. The same act can look evil or acceptable, depending on how it is presented. By showing Dexter's logic and letting us hear his inner voice, the story guides the audience to see him as more than his crimes. It proves that sympathy can be created even for someone who, in real life, would be rejected without question. 10. Reflection of society's fascination with duality. At the heart of the Dexter Morgan Effect is a theme as old as storytelling itself: the struggle between light and dark inside one person. Dexter is not fully good or fully evil. He carries both sides within him. That mix is what keeps people watching.
A code that says you've stepped uninvited into my world. And that's a place where I decide who gets to live and who doesn't.
Audiences are fascinated by this kind of duality because it mirrors real life. Everyone has parts of themselves they don't show. Most people have urges, fears, or thoughts they would never act on or admit. Dexter's story brings that hidden side into the open. It allows viewers to explore the darker parts of human nature without living them out. Psychologists call this idea the shadow self. It means there are pieces of us, anger, jealousy, violent thoughts, that stay hidden under the surface. Dexter becomes a mirror for that shadow. He gives form to impulses most people want to ignore. Instead of running from them, the audience faces them safely through his story. This is why the Dexter Morgan Effect lasts beyond the show itself. It is not just about one character. It is about the deeper truth that good and evil are often mixed together, and people are drawn to stories that force them to face that reality. 11. Cultural influence. The Dexter Morgan Effect didn't stay on screen. It seeped into broader culture, shaping conversations about morality, justice, and even criminal psychology. Journalists used phrases like the Dexter complex to describe criminals who targeted other criminals. Law enforcement officers occasionally referenced Dexter in press conferences, using him as shorthand when describing vigilantes who operated outside the law. The character also became a teaching tool, appearing in psychology and criminology discussions as an example of how audiences justify violence when framed as justice. Over time, Dexter became cultural shorthand for the charming person who might be hiding something monstrous underneath. 12. Ethical debate and criticism. Critics and psychologists have questioned whether audiences become desensitized to violence through shows like Dexter. By framing murder as heroic, does the narrative risk normalizing vigilantism? These debates reveal how powerful and controversial the Dexter Morgan Effect truly is. Some argue that fiction provides a safe outlet for exploring darker impulses. Others worry that repeated exposure blurs the line between fantasy and reality, especially when real cases emerge of people citing Dexter as an influence. The debate remains unsettled, which only reinforces the cultural significance of the effect. 13. Legacy and storytelling. The Dexter Morgan Effect has persisted across Dexter's spin-offs and revivals, each time testing how far audiences will follow him. Later series challenged viewers by forcing them to re-evaluate Dexter's choices, proving that the effect is not static. It evolves as the character and his circumstances change. This shifting perception shows how fragile the balance is. Sympathy for Dexter depends on context. When his actions align with audience morality, he feels like a hero. When they don't, the mask slips, and viewers are left unsettled by how easily they once excused him. 14. Real-world relevance. The effect also spilled into reality in unsettling ways. While most viewers treated the series as fiction, there were isolated cases of people citing Dexter as inspiration for their own crimes. These incidents, though rare, highlight how blurred the line between art and life can become when a character is framed as both monstrous and heroic.
Looks like I have a fan club, membership of 1.
One of the most publicized examples came from Canada in 2008, when Mark Twitchell, later dubbed the Dexter Killer, lured victims using tactics eerily similar to those shown in the series. Investigators found that he was a devoted fan of the show and even kept journals that referenced Dexter. Other cases, though less infamous, involved individuals adopting aspects of the code or rationalizing violence by comparing themselves to the fictional character. 15. Comparative analysis. Finally, the Dexter Morgan Effect can be placed alongside other vigilante narratives. What sets Dexter apart is that his justice isn't about saving the world or protecting the innocent in broad strokes. It's personal, secret, and surgical. He is a case study in how audiences can be persuaded to empathize with someone who, outside of fiction, would be condemned. And that is why the Dexter Morgan Effect remains one of the most fascinating examples of how storytelling can bend morality to its will. The Dexter Morgan Effect shows why we root for him. But not everyone did. One man saw straight through the mask from the start. Up next, every shocking truth about James Dokes explained.